Second night in a row, the Canucks go to the third period tied at 1, and for the second straight night, they have nothing to show for their efforts as they fall 2-1 in Utah. Let's break it down. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios on a Sunday night, a night that sees the Vancouver Canucks fall 2-1 to the Utah Hockey Club, a lost weekend for the Canucks. Out on the road, the start of a 5-game road trip, fell 3-1 in Vegas on Saturday, and this was supposed to be the bounce-back game. It was back-to-back for both the Canucks and Utah, and a power play goal by Dylan Guenther with 6 minutes remaining is the difference. 2-1 the final score, so back-to-back losses for the Canucks out of the Four Nations break, and a big 4-pointer, and as a result, the gap is just 4 points between the Utah Hockey Club and the Vancouver Canucks. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. It's brought to you in part by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you open an account. The chat is hopping, and people are angry. This Canucks team can't score goals, and that seems to be the thrust of what I'm reading early on in the live stream chat. So get the contributions to continue here. Hit us up with a super chat. Our charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Jeff Patterson along with Irf Gafar is back. He's off assignment after a nice run at the Invictus Games. We're happy to have him back, and this is what you have to work with. This is Canucks hockey these days, Irf, if you had forgotten, but they don't score many goals.
I thought the Four Nations tournament was supposed to galvanize the NHL, and
every game was
supposed to be USA, Canada, and all these new fans. Well, it was an absolute stinker.
If USA, Canada was way over here on the spectrum.
Oh, my goodness.
This one tonight was somewhere
way
over here.
Look, you said it after the first period. In their last 5 games, the Vancouver Canucks have scored 1 goal in that first period, and that was Philip Roenick.
There's just been 1 goal, period. They haven't given up a goal, but 5 games, 1 goal in the first period. That's Canucks hockey.
Well, and it is. And look, I know that there's a lot of people in the chat talking about Rick Tocchet and systems and things like this, and whatever happens. The Canucks shot the puck over 30 times yesterday, against the Vegas Golden Knights. They had, 8 shots through 35 minutes of hockey here. And I'm not taking fatigue as an issue. I'm sorry. Elias Pettersson, Kevin Lankinen didn't play past Monday. The rest of the team hadn't played since the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Rick Tocchet's the only guy that should be tired from celebrating Team Canada winning. But even then, there shouldn't have been this much. There is so much more that this team can give, but there's a lot that we need to get into. And in this Vancouver Canucks team right now, things are going sideways fast.
Yeah, the overall record is now 26-20-11. The road record, which was once so sterling, is still pretty good. But 15-10-4 now after the loss in Vegas in this one. And when you talk about fatigue, hey, Utah played last night in Los Angeles. This was back-to-back for both of these teams. Canucks have now lost both games to the Utah Hockey Club. The first one was in overtime, so they've got a single point, but Utah's taken 4 to the 1 that the Canucks have gained head-to-head. They have 1 more meeting, and the race is on. This Canucks team, without Quinn Hughes, struggles so mightily to generate anything. But even when Quinn's in there, it's not like it's rubbed off a ton on others. He's been productive, but there have been struggles all season long. And all of a sudden, on a night when the Canucks had an opportunity last night, went to the third period, 1-1, and they gave up the game winner early in the third. Here it was a little longer, more suspenseful, I suppose, but in the end, it's a loss. And, you get to the third period in a tie both nights, and you can't get anything out of either hockey game. That's got to be frustrating for Rick Tocchet for a lot of the reasons that you just talked about. That I thought they were better against Vegas. I liked the third period push. They generated chances. They actually put some pucks in the net. The goals didn't count, but they did a lot of the right things on those plays. Here, outside of Elias Pettersson on a partial breakaway and a 1-1 tie, putting it up over the net. Didn't even make the goaltender make a save in that moment. But as I look through my third period notes, Philip Hedl on the power play early in the third in front. He had a pretty good look. And then you had Petey on the breakaway. And that was it. In a game that was 1-1 for most of the time. And then in the final 6 minutes, you're down. Like, I didn't feel much of a push. There wasn't a whole lot of pressure there from the Vancouver Canucks. Didn't really feel like the equalizer was on its way. And in the end, it wasn't. And, they opened the scoring on both nights. Jake DeBrusk is the only Canuck to score here since the break. So he's up to 21 now. Has extended his team lead. He's up by 3 on Brock Besser. Power play goal, some decent puck movement. Elias Pettersson, people, hey, where's Petty? There's a nice pass to DeBrusk in front of the net. And from about 2 feet out, he's able to bang it home. But first goals are supposed to matter.
Yeah.
Opening the scoring is supposed to matter. Statistically, that's supposed to mean something. And on both nights, that's it. The Canucks opened the scoring, but that was it for their scoring as well. So, they played 120 minutes of hockey, and Jake DeBrusk is the only guy on this team that has scored goals that actually counted for the Vancouver Canucks. So he's doing his part, but there are a lot of guys. And the list starts, obviously, with Elias Pettersson, but there are a lot of guys. It gets pretty thin pretty quickly. Connor Garland's just been silent, really, since Christmas. He had a nice first half of the season. The motor's always running, but there's just no bottom line there. Kiefer Sherwood has been such a good story, and I don't knock the effort any night, but I guess we knew that he couldn't keep up the rate of production that he had in the early going. But he's gone awfully silent and playing in the top 6 role right now in this hockey club. Drew O'Connor as well on a good team. O'Connor, I think, could be a solid third liner, but as a top 6 forward, that seems like a big ask, and so on and on it goes. And as a result, the Vancouver Canucks have come limping out of the gate here, and on a night that the Calgary Flames defeat the San Jose Sharks by a score of 3-2. Utah beats the Canucks 2-1. Even Anaheim got a single point in Detroit. They were down, got the game to overtime. Don't look now, that game in Anaheim on Thursday. Like, on a 5-game road trip here, there were games that we talked about having heft and significance for the Vancouver Canucks. The game in Anaheim, the Ducks are 6 points back of the Vancouver Canucks in the push for the wild card spot.
Yeah, Ducks play Buffalo, and the Canucks are in LA before they play Anaheim. So could be an interesting game on Thursday. Well, obviously you have to get through the LA game first. Canucks have scored an NHL low 2.10 goals a game since January 1st.
Yeah.
Like, this team just doesn't score. They don't generate much offense. There isn't much going. And I ask you this to further this question. This team is assembled is what they have. Now, barring any crazy moves at the deadlines, I don't think they're going to add anyone very good in that top 6 role. And, I heard Farhan saying the other day that a top center or number 1 center needs to be a priority. Those moves are really difficult to make. But this is their team. This is the roster. And the roster construction is where we have the issue. So, Jeff, I'll ask you, who are their best 3 forwards? Like, what combination of 3 players is the Canucks at their best with? And you have to sit there and you shake your head, but it's a legitimate question to put out there because I really don't know, and I don't think Rick Tocchet does either.
I guess Jake DeBrusk, because he leads the team in scoring, and he at least is doing what he's paid to do. Philip Hedl has had moments here, but hasn't scored coming out of the break. But I thought looked dangerous last night. Had 6 chances. We talked about the power play. I probably would put Philip Hedl in that list, but beyond that, like, now you're asking me to stretch here to find a third best forward, which I think underscores your point that, like, where is the elite difference maker offensive players? Again, it starts with Quinn Hughes. Well, Quinn Hughes missed his 6th straight game, his 10th now since Christmas, and obviously he has missed in a massive way. I mean, the Canucks are far more entertaining. They're fun to watch when Quinn's out there, but they are more dangerous. They're a better team. And, all these tight games that they play, could Quinn Hughes make a difference? Yeah, absolutely he could. But he's not there, and injuries happen, and other guys have to step up. And so, I haven't done the updated math here, but I know prior to this game, and I put this out on Blue Sky this morning, the Canucks have played 20 games. After the Vegas game last night, they played 20 games since January the 1st. Their top 5 scorers, Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronek, Tyler Myers is in the top 5. JT Miller doesn't play here anymore, but he's in their top 5 since January the 1st. Brock Besser is the other guy. So you have 3 defensemen, a guy that doesn't play here anymore, and Brock Besser. Those are their top 5 scorers in 20 games, and I'm doubting anything changed because they scored just the 1 goal to Brusque from Elias Pettersson and Pius Suter. 1:43 into the second period, so after a scoreless first, in which the Canucks were outplayed badly, partly because they took 3 more penalties, just like they did in Vegas. I mean, that's a rough way to live. Now, credit to the penalty killers for the most part, but game winner in this hockey game was scored with Derek Forbort in the box. And maybe that tells a story, too, that, Forbort's quietly been one of their best, if not their best penalty killer. He takes a penalty. Other guys aren't able to pick him up and get the job done. And ultimately, it was Dylan Gunther there on the doorstep. Nifty play by the birthday boy, Nick Schmaltz, puts it on the tape, and Dylan Gunther doesn't miss his 21st goal of the season. Clayton Keller had the other assist, so Keller had both. He had 2 secondary assists, but leads the Utah Hockey Club in scoring. I think was a strong candidate on the short list of guys that missed out on playing for Team USA and probably will be in the running for a spot on the Olympic team next year. Dynamic young player. Logan Cooley back in the lineup after missing 7 games. He got the other goal, a nice response 2 minutes after DeBrusk had opened the scoring. Cooley on a deflection of a John Marino shot, his 16th of the season, and that's it for the goal scoring. 3 goals in this hockey game. 2-1 is the final score, and we'll get to our 3 stars here in a sec. We've got a couple of super chats, though, that I want to mention, and we talked about super chats, so again, we appreciate everybody's contributions. Super chats go to support the BC Mental Health Foundation. Manic says the season's done. Should focus more on asset management to gain higher scoring and tighter defense so we can make a real impact next season. And a super chat from Matt says it's time to bench a big forward, EP40, Besser, maybe Garland, take a loss, and send a real message. I hear where you're coming from, Matt, and yet they've got nobody to score goals. Would they miss one of those guys on a night? I mean, they've scratched Carson Soucy now twice to sort of make a statement on defense, but that's about as deep as the healthy scratches have gone. I'm sort of torn, just because, again, if you take any of those guys out of the lineup, I hear it. You're trying to send a message, but Archie Baines isn't the answer.
No.
Put Nils Oman back in the lineup, that's not the answer. So you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, quite frankly. If you were to take one of those guys out. But I don't hate the idea, and I certainly like the Super Chat contribution, so we do thank you for that. Let's get to, really, to me, what was the story of the hockey game outside of the lack of offense, and that was Artur Silovs.
Yeah.
And Irf, we talked about it with Farhan last night. Got the sense that Rick Tocchet was going to go this way. Artur Silovs' first NHL start since November the 28th in Pittsburgh when he got lit up early by the Penguins. Had 1 win on the season. He still has 1 win on the season. But he gave the Vancouver Canucks a chance. He did his job. He delivered an opportunity for this team late into the third period to get something out of this hockey game. I liked a lot of what I saw from Artur Silovs, and quite frankly, I think the stakes for him were pretty high, that he had to have the kind of performance that'll build trust with his teammates, with his coaching staff. They may need him in Anaheim on Thursday night. Quite possible that we see him again then. If he can play like he did here, then that's NHL goaltending. That was credible NHL goaltending that gave the Canucks a chance. There are better teams out there than Utah, but that's who was on the schedule tonight. That was the assignment in front of Artur Silovs. Quite frankly, I thought Artur Silovs was probably the best Canuck in this hockey game.
I don't even think it was close. He made saves to keep his team in the game when he needed to, and he's had a pretty bad run of games in the NHL this season, Jeff. He's been run out of the building. He hasn't played well in some of the starts that he's gotten. But for him to come back and go in and have the game that he did here, his team needed him. It sucks for him to not get more from the guys in front of him. These are the type of games where your backup's playing. You hope you get, some sort of effort from the guys in front of you just to help see this one through. It's a tight game. It's the one the Canucks are comfortable playing in these one-goal games, and still nothing to show for. No one else can go back up there and be able to get a goal to at least, try and get this win, or at least get it to overtime.
Stopped Lawson Krause on a breakaway in the second period when it was 1-1. Had the save on Bustad on that tip in the high slot. Again, it was a 1-1 hockey game, and kind of going against the play to his right, but able to flash out the left pad, make a save. Josh Doan beat him 5-hole, but the puck stayed between the pads, and the overhead view was incredible. Yeah. That came moments after Petey had his breakaway, and can you imagine the howls of protest we would have had in the inbox if Elias Pettersson, making 11.6, doesn't score, and Josh Doan, who's essentially a fourth liner on this Utah Hockey Club, had he been able to beat Silovs at the other end, but Silovs stuck with it, and the replay showed that puck just on the outside of the post, so close call there. But yeah, there were a number of stops just before the power play goal that won it. Schmaltz in the slot, bang play, and already read that one nicely and made that save. So, stops all 11 shots that he faced in the first period, 10 of 11 in the second period, 9 of 10 in the third, 30 saves on 32 shots. The final shots, 32-15 in favor of the Utah Hockey Club. All right, that brings us to our 3-star selection here on Rink Wide. The 3 stars in the building, home cooking in a 2-1 hockey game. We just detailed that we thought Silovs was the best player. No mention of him. Dylan Guenther, Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, they all figure in the scoring. No love for the goaltender. I know it wasn't a busy night for him, but 1-1 tie for much of the hockey game. The margins are pretty thin there. So even though Vejmelka wasn't busy, did his job. I'm a little surprised I didn't throw him some love. 3 stars are different here on Rink Wide. Not a huge surprise. You can see Artur Silovs is the first star in this hockey game. Even a losing cause, again, he was busy and he was terrific. So good for him. Karel Vejmelka, 14 saves on 15 shots. But as we said, couldn't afford to blink or couldn't allow the next one. Next one never got past him. Dylan Guenther, not a huge night for him. But you can see he's the kind of player that, give him an inch and he can turn a hockey game. And ultimately that's what happened there. Guenther had 3 shots, 5 attempts on the night, played 20 minutes. You know what I like about Dylan Guenther is, though, this young player, and he's always going to be linked to the Canucks because the draft pick they traded away for Wheel and Garland. He puts them in front with 6 minutes to go. He's out there in the final minute of play defending the lead as well. So it shows that the coach has a ton of trust in him, that it's not just about the goal scoring, even though he leads the team with 21. He's getting it done at both ends of the ice. He's already a really good player and is going to be for a long time, and is going to get paid accordingly because he's already signed the big extension. So, we talk about elite players that Dylan Guenther would look pretty good in a Canuck uniform right about now, but that ship has sailed, so we shouldn't dwell too much on that topic. The 3 stars here on Rink Wide are brought to you by Greta Bar YVR. Again, we had some fun there on Thursday night as Canada beat the U.S. in overtime in the Four Nations. I had the viewing party. Place was hopping. Drinks were flowing, as you can imagine, but food as well. The street food menu, we always talk about all the arcade games, the weekly drink specials. Greta Bar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar, let the games begin.
Got another super chat from James Hansen. How do you feel about Mancini, and why did Lekkerimäki not play here? Abby, trade bound, ? Thought Mancini was okay.
Yep.
I didn't think he did too much to not like the guy's play, but didn't do enough where you say he was off the stat sheet or anything like that. Solid. It was an okay game. And as for Lekkerimäki, that's an interesting one because, we mentioned there's a lot of people in the chat talking about Archie Baines, and, I agree with what a lot of people are saying. I think he's a very good AHL player. Maybe the NHL, not yet. Again, maybe get some more seasoning down there. I just don't think he's the answer. I agree with you, Jeff, but Lekkerimäki's down there. Ratu's down there. There are players down there that have the skill, have the compete to be able to play in the NHL, and why haven't the Canucks called them up? I mean, that's something else, that entirely different conversation that we can have as well.
No, but this is a team right now at the NHL level that's struggling mightily to score goals, and you're picking Nils Oma on one night and Archie Baines the other. Lekkerimäki did play tonight. He didn't play the last couple of games for Abbotsford, and it's always so hard to get information out of Abbotsford and why guys aren't playing. Mancini didn't play last night. Obviously, they knew that they were going to call him up, and to make that happen, they had to put Thatcher Demko on IR. That's just paperwork. Demko's not going to play on this road trip, so they wanted the roster spot. Mancini played 14 minutes in his Canuck debut, not his NHL debut. He played 15 games for the Rangers earlier this year, primarily in the third pair role with Derek Forbort, and he was okay. I thought there were some moments. The underlying numbers weren't kind to him.
Yep.
It got buried. Utah controlled 2/3 of all the shot attempts, so 33.3% individual Corsi. Actual shots on goal were 10-4 for Utah when Mancini was out there. So, too much time in his own zone defending. It's a team game. It's never just one guy. But I didn't think, he didn't look afraid or timid, or the moment was too big for him, or he was overwhelmed by this opportunity. And again, I'm sure it helped having played 15 games at the NHL level for a team like the New York Rangers. But I like the fact that, they weren't afraid to plug him in here on the back-to-backs and try and inject, some youth and little maybe fresh legs. Curious that Carson Soucy is the guy that comes out of the lineup, and that's the second time now that Carson Soucy has been a healthy scratch. On back-to-backs, I kind of thought maybe a veteran like Derek Forbort was the guy that you take out of the lineup, but again, I think they like his penalty-killing utility, and you saw it in the first period. But just back to the Abbotsford question, so, your NHL team's struggling to score. Mm-hmm. You've got Lecker-Mackey, who's having a terrific season, has already played in the NHL, has scored in the NHL. I don't get why he's not up here right now. But beyond that, if you don't want him in the NHL for whatever reason, then, Ratu seems like the next best opportunity. Linus Karlsson had 3 points tonight down, and Karlsson has shown he's a tweener. He's another guy that's, a proficient scorer at the American Hockey League level, was a proficient scorer over in Sweden. It hasn't happened, but Irf, I actually thought in his last stint in the National Hockey League, out on that road trip into Nashville and St. Louis, I thought Linus Karlsson looked the best that he ever has in the National Hockey League. He scored his first NHL goal against the Predators. I would take him over both Nils Åman and Archie Baines. And so I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on exactly with the decision-making, but it feels to me like you've got better options down on the farm to bring up. Why wouldn't you? Now, a couple of days off here. There's nothing that says the Canucks don't take stock of this weekend and realize that they have 9 goals as a team in their last 5 hockey games. Somehow they're 3-2 in those 5 games, but they've scored 9 times in 5 games. So forget the 2 point whatever since January 1st. They're under 2 goals in their last 5 hockey games. You go even further than that. Of those 9 goals, 4 on the power play, 1 an overtime penalty shot in San Jose. That accounts for 5 of them. They have scored 4 5-on-5 goals in their last 5 hockey games. Less than 1 goal at 5-on-5 over their last 5 games. It's almost impossible to win. It's even more impossible to think that you're going to maintain your hold on a playoff spot. And if you do, what does it look like when you run headlong into Vegas or Winnipeg in the opening round if you're scoring less than 1 5-on-5 goal per game?
Well, that's the thing. And the trade deadline isn't... The Canucks are still one of those teams that are kind of on the bubble as to what they're going to do, right? The future doesn't look bright for Brock Besser in a Vancouver Canuck uniform. They've had a bunch of time to resign. We can get to that at the end of the show, but
4 games to go now before the trade deadline.
Exactly. And I don't think the Canucks are going anywhere, and they think that they're a contender where they're going to be huge sellers here at the deadline. So this is your team. And you mentioned that 5-on-5 stat. Their star players at this point aren't that. Like the Elias Petterssons of the world, the Philip Hedels of the world, Jake DeBrusk, I know he scored. Those guys are not doing it for them. When Connor Garland's gone cold and not doing much in the second half of the season, when a guy like Pius Suter, who had a really good first half of the season, when Kiefer Sherwood, who also had a really good first half of the season, when they're not doing anything, your star players, if you don't have Quinn Hughes in that lineup, and we talk about elite offensive talent, he's still at the end of the day a defenseman on this hockey team. As much as we love the offensive output and everything that Quinn Hughes does and means for this team, he's still a defenseman. His job is to defend. The offensive guys aren't generating anything. You've got a much deeper problem than that.
Right. So the updates on a few of these guys. Jake DeBrusk scored in 4 of the last 7. So we know he's streaky. He seems to be moving in the right direction. That's great, but he needs some help. He can't do it alone, clearly. But he has scored on back-to-back nights here. The other thing, too, with Jake DeBrusk is his last 3 goals have all opened the scoring. Remember the goal against Colorado before the break where he reached up, grabbed the puck in front of the net, dropped it down, and kind of tapped it in. That opened the scoring that night. Last night in Vegas here against Utah. So he's doing his part to try and spark the hockey club. But again, nobody's following suit. Nobody's following up. So Jake DeBrusk has scored 4 in his last 7. Elias Pettersson, cover your ears if you don't want to hear it, but 11 without a goal, 1 in his last 17 since Christmas. And that was against the Buffalo Sabres. Brock Besser has 2 points in his last 8 hockey games, so that's not exactly getting it done. And you do wonder if his future is weighing on his mind here. And then Connor Garland. Connor Garland has 1 point in his last 8 hockey games. There was a goal in Dallas. Connor Garland has set up 1 goal since Christmas. He has 1 assist since Christmas. He scored some goals.
Yeah.
But, again, you're a teammate. You're a line mate. There are other guys out there. He's on the power play all the time. He has 1 assist since Christmas. So, yeah, I mean, just really, really difficult for the Vancouver Canucks if they think that they're going to have some success here and win more than they have. Let's get to the stat that stands out because it sort of ties in with a lot of what we were just talking about there. But there you go. EP40, 2 road goals on the season. 1 was at Anaheim. 1 was in Pittsburgh. Look at the standings. Neither the Ducks nor the Penguins in the playoff spot. Not neither one of them particularly good teams. Both of those games were in November. It's now pushing late February. The goal in Anaheim, if people remember, was actually credited to Brock, I think, originally, or was it Quinn? It was a point shot that brushed off. Like they had to, microscopically look at the replay. It brushed off the jersey of Elias Pettersson, and it was credited to him. Now he stood his ground in front of the net, but this wasn't him deking through a whole team and going top shelf. And then the other one was a nice goal in Pittsburgh. 2 road goals on the season against crappy teams. Like it's so frustrating. I mean, every way you come at it, every stat you come up with, just kind of digs a deeper hole here for just how disappointing this season has been for Elias Pettersson. But yeah, that is definitely a stat that stands out.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the Canucks have said that he suffered an injury at 4 Nations, which is interesting to say the least. But yeah, just looking at some of his shot totals, like that St. Louis game at the end of January where he had 7. Mm-hmm. Beyond that,
it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think that it's the case of it's a bad season. We can say what we want. Is he hurt? Is he not hurt? Some people say yes. Some people say no. What's going on with Elias Pettersson? The fact of the matter is the guy was on the breakaway and missed the net by 8 feet.
Yeah.
Didn't have a shot on net.
Didn't have a shot on goal tonight. I mean,
in an important game for your hockey team. Look, I don't want to pile on as we are, but that's what people are talking about. The guy gets paid the most money. He got presumably what he wished with JT Miller out of town. Who is flourishing in New York, by the way. Mm-hmm. And when you're dependent on and the puck's on your stick with not the game on the line, but essentially a pretty good chance to, put a stranglehold on the hockey game, you got to hit the net. And I think that maybe it's a case of squeezing the stick a little bit too tight. If it was a knee injury, he didn't look bad getting on that breakaway there. There's something there that, it's not good. And if this team, we've always said it, this team will go as far as number 40 and 43 can take them. 43 is taking them to a lot of places. It's time for number 40 to step up and do it. And we've been saying that all season long, and it obviously hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Jake DeBrusk had 4 shots on goal to lead the Canucks. Philip Hedl had 3. And then, again, they had 15 as a team. So just a brutal total for the Vancouver Canucks. And, yeah, they were playing back-to-back, but so was Utah. And this is now a problem as well for the Canucks, that they're 1-5 in the second game of back-to-backs. Their lone victory was maybe the most improbable. That was the travel troubles day getting into Toronto after losing in Carolina. But they did come up with a 3-0 win on a Saturday night there. But otherwise, they're basically throwing these games away. Well, guess what? They got another back-to-back coming up on Thursday in Anaheim. They have 2 more in the 2 weeks that follow. Like, they've got a compressed schedule here coming out of, everybody does, but including the Vancouver Canucks, coming out of the break, 27 games in 54 nights, and there are a few more back-to-back. You can't. Like, every point matters. You can't be throwing away, oh, well, it's back-to-back, we're in tough, our backup goaltender, whatever. No, you got to dig down and find a way, and the Vancouver Canucks didn't in this one, and really haven't for much of this season been able to muster the efforts necessary in the second half of the back-to-backs. And, it's not like they've played a ton of world beaters, like Nashville on home ice on the second of a back-to-back. Pittsburgh was a second of back-to-back and back in November. Winnable opponents, beatable opponents, and yet the Canucks just haven't been nearly good enough on the second night of back-to-backs. When you look under the hood in this one, again, the underlying number is not kind to the Vancouver Canucks. On the night, Utah controls 56% of all shot attempts. The actual shots at 5-on-5 were 23-10 in Utah's favor, so more than a 2-1 margin. The scoring chances at 5-on-5, 15-7. High dangers were actually even, so that surprises me a little bit there, but at the end of the night, Utah got the goal that they needed. It was a power play goal in the third period. They win the hockey game by a score of 2-1. As far as individual performances go, Tyler Myers was your Corsi king, took another early penalty, had the tough first period last night. Boy, Hockey Night buried him in the first intermission last night, but rightly so. Yeah. And his night didn't get off to a great start here. Took the interference penalty on Jack McBain in the early going. Could have put the Canucks in a tough spot. They were able to kill that one off, and then two others. What a weird first four periods out of the break. Too many men on the ice penalties last night. A delay of game, puck over the glass, and then Marcus Pettersson blocks a shot with a stick, and I guess didn't even know that his stick had been compromised, but continued to play. That's a penalty, playing with a broken stick. So some odd penalties called against the Vancouver Canucks. No blood. They were able to kill them all off, but in the end, it was Derek Forbort getting called for a hold on Michael Carcone, and that one did come back to bite the Canucks. That was the power play winner for the Utah Hockey Club. 2-1 is the final score. So Myers and Marcus Pettersson, reasonable Corsi, but the shots at 5-on-5 were 9-2 Utah, with Myers out there on the ice. At the other end of the spectrum, a tough go for Teddy Bluger. Really, it's been a black hole of offense for Teddy Bluger. I mean, I know he's in a fourth line capacity, but showed last year that there was some offense in his game. It has just completely vanished. The two young defensemen, Mancini and Pettersson, both tough nights by the underlying numbers. And again, when you're a team and you get outshot 32-15, nobody is going to sparkle when you look beneath the hood there. It was a tough go all around. And look, it's not getting any easier if they go into Los Angeles, where the Kings are almost unbeatable, although the Canucks are one of three teams to beat them in regulation at Crypto.com, but they give up next to nothing. Los Angeles, one of the stingiest teams in the National Hockey League, and we can talk more about the Kings a little bit later here, but that's what's next up for the Canucks. Couple days off here after the back-to-back. Monday will be a full team day off. They'll get back to practice on Tuesday. We'll get an update on Quinn Hughes then, see if he's available for them. They need him. There is no question.
No kidding.
They need the captain back in action. All right. We've got Artur Silovs post-game.
We do have Artur Silovs.
All right,
well, let's get to that first.
Let's hear from the Canucks netminder after the 2-1 loss in Utah.
The outcome you guys want tonight, but from your perspective, what did you see in the result? What led to it?
I mean, it's tough, third period, you get a PK, they manage to score it, and it's hard to come back from that, and it's tight game, and they managed to score more.
30 saves from yourself, some incredible stops this evening. How did you feel?
I feel good. Guys did a good job, in penalty kill, covering the dangerous guys, giving me the far side guys, from the blue line, boxing out pretty well. So I think we did a good job there.
What's the key to bouncing back and closing out this road trip in the next couple of games with some strong hockey?
I think we're just have to keep working. Gonna have a day off, good practice, and then go from there.
There you go. Work hard, eat right, take your vitamins. I mean, asking him the keys to the rest of the road trip, sure. I mean, whatever. He did his part tonight. Again, no issues whatsoever with Artur Silovs. A couple of comments here. Eagle Bay says, I guess management doesn't want to rush Lecker-Mackey, let him dominate down in the A, make his full-time NHL next season when he's stronger. And there may be some of the thinking here, although the Canucks are still in a playoff spot. Even though Calgary creeps closer, the Canucks remain, for this night at least, above the playoff bar. I just don't know how much longer you can go without trying to inject some of the offense that you've got in the system. Cambia says, I guess we'll never see Jeff with a mullet. No, I had the haircut just before Four Nations for the little Mexican vacation. And, yeah, the idea of a heater for the Vancouver Canucks now, Winnipeg, I think, has won 9 in a row. Like, the idea of a 9-game win streak for the Vancouver Canucks, got to score some goals.
Yeah.
So, no, I think I'm all right with the hair, and you're going to have to be okay with the hair as well.
What do you make of now the discourse, and it's been like this all season long now, of the system versus the players playing the system and them not be comfortable in the system, and the reason why they're not getting shots is because of the structure of what Rick Tocchet wants them to do. Where are you at in all of this? Because that's obviously becoming very apparent now. I mean, look, they got over 30 shots the other night, and here they don't against the Utah team. So clearly one system worked then, and here it didn't. You play to your opponent, and you're obviously judging by that as well. But what do you make of all the talk about that and Rick Tocchet?
I'm there at every practice here at Rogers Arena. I'm not on the road, but I go to a ton of practices. I can tell you, like, Rick Tocchet doesn't practice chipping the puck to the corner and, chasing after it there. He talks after every game about wanting guys to hold on to pucks and make plays and get to the interior and all that kind of stuff. And it just feels like all that's falling on deaf ears. Brock Besser scored 40 goals last year. He knows how to put pucks in the net. He had one shot on goal tonight and just didn't look dangerous. And, again, every road leads back to Elias Pettersson. I guess for me, the great mystery in all of this is, Quinn Hughes has had this incredible season in Rick Tocchet's system as a defenseman. So Quinn Hughes has found ways to rise above and produce. It still boggles my mind, on a lot of nights, like, how does Quinn Hughes have 59 points and the leading scorer on this hockey club among forwards has 35? Like, how? Just pass the puck to Quinn and you're going to get points. At least that feels like it should happen. So, no, I think there's way too much perimeter play, even on the power play. I'm not sure. Like, I know that they scored a power play goal, but look at the 2 power play units they have. Like, they don't have much scoring in this lineup, and yet it felt like they were trying to find balance in their 2 units as opposed to loading up with their best players. But maybe that brings us back to your conversation about who are their best players. But, the 1 power play unit was Pettersson, it was DeBrusk. Niels Höglander is now all of a sudden getting power play time where before he couldn't. Pius Suter and Philip Hronek, that was 1 unit. And then the other was Besser, Garland, Hedl, Dakota Joshua as the net front, and Tyler Myers getting power play time. And, like we said, the power play actually in the last 5 games has scored 4 times. Like, it's been productive. You'd take 4 power play goals in a 5-game stretch, or every 5-game stretch. So I think a lot of this is back to the individuals, and I think there are better players. I think Connor Garland's a better player than he has shown since Christmas. Pius Suter had a nice run in the first half of the season. Why do guys have good first halves? I mean, Sam Lafferty and Ilya Mikheyev had decent first halves a year ago. Kiefer Sherwood, again, the hit totals are there, the effort, the energy. And I've said this before, say it again. I don't have a problem with Kiefer Sherwood in your top 6 for a short time, trying to give guys a bit of a boost. But on a good team, like Kiefer Sherwood was very much a 4th liner in Nashville last year.
Yep.
On a good team, Kiefer Sherwood is in your bottom 6, and he's hitting everything that moves and, getting in the face of guys. But now you're asking him to be a top 6 guy. Well, he scored a bunch in the first half, but he has gone ice cold offensively, really, since he had the hat trick against Colorado just before Christmas. So, again, some of these guys are miscast. I think there are more productive players, better players than they're showing. But, at the end of the day, you are what you put on the ice. This is, as you said, this is their roster. This is who the Vancouver Canucks are. And so, they're in this turtle derby with teams like Calgary, with Utah at the start of the season. The idea that the Canucks are going to be keeping company and having to fend off those kind of teams, that would have blown your mind. But we've all watched this season unfold. They're 57 games in. They've got 25 to go now. And it is a bit of a turtle derby to the finish line. And let's see, is there a team here below the bar that's going to make a splash ahead of the trade deadline to try to...
Like Utah.
Well, and I think a lot of people look at Utah. They got a ton of cap space. They got a ton of assets.
They got an owner that wants to do big things.
Yeah, first-year team. Can you imagine what playoff hockey would mean there? And look, they haven't won many games at home this year. This is just their 10th home ice win all season in 28 games, but 2 of their 10 home ice wins have come against the Vancouver Canucks. So, let's see. I kind of want to see where the dust settles after the trade deadline.
Yep.
Then we'll have a better sense of who's loaded up, who has sold off, have teams gotten weaker, what have the Canucks done with Brock Besser, and also where is Quinn Hughes in all of this? Is Quinn Hughes going to play on Wednesday in Los Angeles after another day off and a practice day? They need him. We know that. And the fact that he's been skating tells you that he's close. The fact that he was considered an option briefly there for Team USA gave you hope that he would have played one of these games this weekend. And I kind of thought maybe the plan was, all right, the Utah game is the more important of the two. If he was only going to play one, coming back in back-to-backs never really made sense to me. So I thought there was a world in which Quinn Hughes might sit out against Vegas and play this one tonight. But clearly he's not ready to go just yet. So... we have to wait every day, but they need him back. They need him back in a big, big way.
We have the head coach.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get to Rick Tocchet, and then I want to take a look around some of the other games that mattered to the Canucks in the Western Conference. We'll update the standings because all games are complete now on a busy Sunday in the National Hockey League. But Rick Tocchet, a frustrated head coach, team's not scoring, not winning, and heat is starting to mount on this organization as teams close the gap from behind in the chase for the wild card spot.
Back-to-back frustrating games. What just led to the outcome in this one tonight?
Well, the frustrating part, I think, is we had 21 block shots, or I think it was 15 missed shots. It's 30-something chances to, you can't, we're struggling to score goals, but you got to move your feet, you got to change angles, you got to hit the net. That's a big number for a team that's not scoring. So I'd rather guys just take a little bit off it, hit the net, and get people in net because, we're double clutching, and I think that's lack of confidence. So we got to take a couple of days here and figure this out.
You give Kevin Lankinen a break. Artur Silovs steps in. He makes 30 saves tonight. Did you like his performance?
Yeah, good. He was really good. I'm really proud of him. He's had a tough year at the start. That was a good start for him.
How difficult is it to get into a rhythm, Rick, when there's another 3 penalties in the first period?
Yeah, 3 penalties, and then when you don't score, you magnify. Obviously, you can't take a penalty. There were 6 minutes left. You can't hold a guy. So, like I said, when you don't score goals, everything's magnified.
The same game in some ways. I mean, the penalties sort of kill your flow. You get the early goal, but ultimately it just seemed like the amount of chances they were getting, kind of inevitably they were going to get one.
Yeah. I get it. Like I said, when you get shots through to the net, and when you hit the net or you don't get your shots blocked, you're going to get possession time. So it's not one and done. So our shot selection, we have guys double clutching right now, and we got to these next 2 days we're going to have to figure it out here. Practice, get some confidence on some guys.
It wasn't like there was an overwhelming number of chances, but your defense has sort of been culpable on all 7 of the sort of power play opportunities you've given your opponents this weekend. Is there something there in terms of needing to preserve sort of the structural game you're playing, but do it with more discipline for your D?
In the penalties, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, you got to pick your spots to do certain things. You cannot grab anybody. It's just I'd rather let them go in the corner than have the battle in the corner. So, the too many men. Yeah, there's a lot of penalties from the D, and we got to sort that out. Yeah.
There you go. You can tell that he's a frustrated head coach, and as you said, I mean, this is a guy that was behind the bench a week ago with the best players in the world, and now he comes back, and this is it. His team scored twice. Only one player has scored in the Canucks 2 games here over the weekend. James coming with some heat in the chat. You all continue to miss the point. the system isn't working, regardless of Tocchet's comments. If you're not generating, creating chances, you can't hold on to the system. Elias Pettersson missed a partial breakaway. That's not on Rick Tocchet. Like,
who are the ones generating chances?
well, that's just it. Like, Eagle Bay says it's a mix of roster and coaching. Something needs to change. Light engine players need to adjust, but so does the coach. If the system doesn't work, the coach has to change. And there are 25 games to go. If the Canucks fall short of making the playoffs after a 50-win, 109-point season with all the drama, ticket prices are going up. We heard that over the break. I do think that it's going to be difficult to sell this to the fan base.
I think it's going to be difficult to sell it to Quinn Hughes.
It'll be difficult to sell to Quinn Hughes. It might be difficult to sell to Rick Tocchet,
Yep.
who, if he wants to go back into broadcasting, he'd have a job there in a heartbeat. I think if he stepped away from the Canucks at the end of the season, if he wants to continue coaching, he'd have options to coach as well. Although this isn't reflecting well on him, because a lot of people are saying this is essentially what happened when he coached in Arizona too. And so I think some really difficult decisions and discussions are going to have to be held at the end of the season if the Canucks fall short. Now, if they get to the playoffs, what kind of expectations, especially if they run, straight into one of those top division winning teams, they're going to be in tough, especially if they continue to play like this. But, in saying all that, like we talked about those 5 first periods, they haven't given up a goal. Like, this is sort of this idea that these are the games they want to play. And you saw before the break, if they can get 2 goals, they could beat Toronto, they could beat the San Jose Sharks. But getting that second goal just seems like a monumental challenge right now for the Vancouver Canucks. So you can hear the frustration there. And I don't disagree with Rick Tocchet that, too many blocked shots by opponents. They're shooting into shin pads. They're giving opponents time to react and get into position to block some of those shots. Again, get shots off quicker, make goaltenders make saves, hit the net and see what happens at the very least. And when you get a partial breakaway, put the puck on net. Maybe it goes in, but if you shoot it 8 feet wide and high, you're not scoring a goal there. So back to the drawing board, as we said, Monday a day off, and then a Tuesday day of practice at the Kings facility outside of Los Angeles. And then they'll take on the Kings on Wednesday, the Ducks at the Honda Center on Thursday. The road trip wraps up in Seattle next Saturday. All right, it's been a while since we've had a chance to do a line of the night with you, but that's where we are here. It is time for our line of the night, brought to you by Bet365.
Yeah, not much fun tomorrow night on the NHL schedule, I'll tell you that. As this portion of the show is brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres & Price. Canucks Conversation, Jeff, you and I here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Open account Bet365 today, but on a huge range of markets, use code NATION. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. 2 games tomorrow, the San Jose Sharks against the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg. Like them plus 2.5, not to lose by 3 goals. And Jack Eichel, anytime goal scorer. Showed up in big games for his Vegas Golden Knight teams. Maybe not so much for Team USA against Canada, but we'll stop talking about that. I like those two. Put those two together, and you get some pretty good odds. Anytime goal scorer and the San Jose. It's a prime game for Sharks and Jets.
Yes.
Macklin Celebrini is going to get like 30 goals this season.
Sharks fell late goal by the Calgary Flames to defeat San Jose 3-2. So a Calgary win. We talked about Anaheim losing in overtime, but the Ducks got a single point. Ovi had the hat trick. Washington ran it up on the Edmonton Oilers. 7-3 was the final in that one. So those games earlier in the day. All action is now complete in the National Hockey League, and the updated wildcard race for the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks stay above the bar with 63 points, but Calgary just 1 back with a game in hand. Utah is 4 back. Utah has played an extra game, so the Canucks have a game in hand on Utah. St. Louis and Anaheim, they're in the mix as well. So let's see where it all goes. Next up for the Canucks, the Los Angeles Kings on Wednesday. Kings were 5-3 winners at home coming out of the break. Beat this Utah Hockey Club last night, 30-17-7 on the season, and the home record of 18-3-2 at Crypto.com. Kings have played the fewest home games in the National Hockey League this year as well, so keep that in mind. They've got more home games than anybody down the stretch, but as we mentioned earlier, the Canucks are one of 3 teams this year to get a regulation win to take 2 points off the Kings on their home ice. Adrian Kempe, Anze Kopitar lead Los Angeles 46 points apiece. Kempe leads the team with 25 goals. Kevin Fiala has 22, and Drew Doughty, who played for Team Canada, is back. He's played 7 games now and doing what Drew Doughty does. He's averaging over 26 minutes
he eats minutes.
a night. So there you go. That is it. That's going to do it for us. A reminder that the NHL trade deadline coming up on March the 7th. Countdown is on. Daily Face-Off trade deadline special comes your way on March the 7th from 8 a.m. until 12:30 Pacific. The DFO Live team is going to be on top of all the breaking news, all the trades of the day, everything that happens, instant reaction, expert analysis. Make sure that you check it all out. Tune in to Daily Face-Off's YouTube channel and follow Daily Face-Off on socials in the days leading into the deadline and, of course, on the deadline day, March the 7th. 2-1, Utah defeats the Vancouver Canucks, back-to-back losses out of the break. On to Los Angeles, and that's when we'll do the next episode of Rink Wide Vancouver. Or if it was good to get you back.
It's good to be back. Yeah, it was fun. I missed the chat. I did. Some of it, but it was fun.
And our thanks to Atsu working hard behind the scenes as well. For Irf Gafar, I'm Jeff Patterson. Thanks so much for joining us. This has been another edition of Rink Wide Vancouver.